Greetings and salutations, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World End Economica. Now, last time round, we had some interesting developments. We may be going freelance for all we know, considering others want Hal to invest their money and help them out because moon debt is not a fun time. Then we may have gotten scouted by some really rich dude named Barton. Not quite sure how that's all gonna go down. So hey, let's go find out. What? I had paused for a second, but told myself this was something that had to be said, and proceeded to say it. Compensation. I pronounced that word clearly, without running away. I looked Lisa right in the eye, with all seriousness. There's the issue of compensation. I don't plan on working for free. Lisa's expression truly changed. She looked at me with an uneasy expression, holding back a huge amount of feelings, whether it was an urge to cry or an urge to yell angrily. Compensation. That's right. I took a risk to experiment with this. It wasn't easy getting such investment technology into my hands. Furthermore, I have an agreement to pay my due share of the usage fee for Hagana's program. I don't care what Chris's family situation is. However, I won't do it without some sort of compensation. I took a deep breath and recalled Barton's dignified demeanor. An investor. It was an extremely theatrical declaration, but I didn't retreat a centimeter from Lisa. I was even prepared to get in an argument and part ways. However, Lisa slowly opened her mouth at the end of the staring contest. That compensation, how much would it come out to be? 20% of earnings. The traditional cut hedge funds took. They'd gather money from their customers and trade according to the decisions of the fund manager. They would take 20% of the earnings. At my reply, Lisa twisted her lips as if she'd just eaten something bitter. You're not going to lower that anymore, right? I'm not doing this to play around. She scattered her strong emotions slowly with a deep breath. Her hair, which had started to stand on end, gradually settled. And then, at the end, she slowly closed her eyelids and gave a big sigh. I got it. I'll tell them that. Of course, I'll pay Hagana's compensation from that. Yeah, I don't doubt you on that. So then, what are you doubting me on? She was about to say something but caught herself, shut her mouth, and then smiled bitterly while refining what she wanted to say.
In the name of Christ, I have to admonish avarice when I see it.
I guess we'd never come to an agreement in this life.
Yep, although I also understand that you aren't just a slave to greed. At least, it couldn't be someone who'd offer his own assets so easily.
It was 50,000 mules. I was truly happy that I got complimented, and my lips formed a curve.
Therefore, I'm not admonishing you. Furthermore,
What?
you are so annoyingly mature at this moment.
My face got more strained at Lisa's wry laugh. I scratched my head haphazardly and then reached for the rest of the meal.
I'll handle Hagana.
If you could do that, then that'll be great. I didn't want to butt heads with Hagana over profits. Even if she were only partially disagreeing on something, I didn't think she'd be the type to back off.
But, Hal,
Huh? Lisa asked me with a truly puzzled face from across the table.
who in the world did you meet?
I intentionally scuffled down my meal with my mouth open wide and didn't reply. She'd probably hate me if I told her it was an arrogant resident of a greed-laden district. Nor did Lisa push on any further. Thanks for the meal. Having said that, I forcefully ended the conversation. The next day, Hagana accepted the compensation terms readily and relayed them to Chris over the phone. They, too, accepted readily. The terms could be illustrated thus. Let's say we took in the 30,000 mules and doubled its worth. Then 6,000 mules. 20% of the 30,000 mule profit would be paid out to us as compensation, out of which I'd pay Hagana's share for the programming and retain 4,800 mules for myself. The small reward wasn't bad. On top of that, I was more insistent on this additional term to the agreement. That is, if we should lose money, then we wouldn't be held accountable. Anyhow, we weren't the ones who broached the subject initially. It'd be too much to then hold us accountable for losses. They wanted to gamble, not us. Chris's dad was so huge he made Barton look like a midget, and he had the dignity of a laborer. Still, he accepted all of my demands and bowed deeply. Lisa had a sour look on her face, but it was we who had the skill and means. Being able to monetize such a skill to the maximum extent was a totally natural thing to do, I told myself proudly. Besides, Hagana didn't even have an ounce of the talk of compensation and what happened to losses in her head. Instead of that, while staring at the 30,000 mules Chris's dad bought, she muttered forcefully,
I'll make it grow. Lots.
Hagana was right. I had gotten noticed by Barton, so it wasn't the time to be making lazy trades either. However, I myself was surprised at the fact that I didn't have to get worked up over Hagana's comment, let alone worry about it. Hagana's program was that good. With the exception of a few minutes a day, it was constantly monitoring and analyzing 1,000 stocks on the virtual market and 4,000 stocks on the real one. It was more accurate and performant than me trying to flip rapidly back and forth between all these various displays until my eyes dried out. It could perform calculations similar to what I can by staring at a single stock, but it can do that on many stocks in a fraction of a second. Furthermore, the statistical spread that I'd only vaguely understood could be calculated exactly, and it shortened the amount of time I had to spend per stock. Better still, I had stopped chasing stocks that had lopsided investment structures or felt strange to me. Hagana's program could find one money tree after another without my needing to chase after dangerous stocks, so there was no point in taking the additional risk. My main workflow turned into buying and selling according to the program's instructions, then relaying what went well and what went poorly back to Hagana. Next to me would be Hagana puzzling over the results and solving arcane equations by hand. But I've stopped asking her day after day what she was doing. As days passed, the number of Greek letters in Hagana's electronic notebook increased. Beta, gamma, delta, theta, kappa, all of them had mathematical meanings. But the only one I could understand was alpha. Amongst all of the mind-boggling Greek letters that populated investment theory, alpha was one which had a simple and clear meaning. It was simply how much better you were performing over the market average. There wasn't one thing more boring in the world of investing than the market average. Any monkey with money would be able to perform as well as the market average by investing a little into every stock on the market. Anyone with a brain would instantly understand that taking care to avoid falling stocks would lead to easily winning over the market average. Alpha was an indicator of how much smarter you were than a monkey. My alpha value had its ups and downs. However, Hagana was trying to establish with her formulas a way for me to keep my alpha consistently at my highest levels. It wouldn't be affected by my health, the situation, or my mood. She was working out consistent best performance using formulas. Hagana was sitting next to me, converting everything I did into formulas. Therefore, the more refined the program got, the more free time I got. And the more free time I got, the more I could trade calmly. Once I started trading calmly, I realized there were many things I didn't see before, many things I didn't have time to feel out. Maybe the reason for my slump before teaming up with Hagana was that I didn't have enough breathing room. It was probably like sharpening a knife to the point where the edge would be all chipped. If I had to say one thing I wasn't too happy with, it was probably that Hagana's program was so good that I stopped living on the edge while trading. If I had time to get involved in dangerous stunts, it was better to spend the time to earn money safely. Reading the news, looking at a company's financial affairs, and taking in the mood of the market. It wouldn't be strange to say that all-for-nothing trades were big gambles. Besides, right now we were entrusted with other people's money, and we were already hitting it big. So there was no reason to take dangerous risks. Thus, I laughingly dismissed my thoughts of it being boring and empty as useless childish worries. My funds increased further over the week. I had 47 million mools in the virtual market and 92,000 in the real market. With the 30% increase, Chris's dad's part had increased to an amount just short of 40,000 mools. It wasn't a bad result on its own, but we were still far from resolving the debt situation. I had made haughty demands to Chris's dad, saying that I'd keep 20% of the gains and wouldn't take responsibility for losses. However, I was a little unsure whether the profits here would live up to my arrogance. A week after we took in her family's savings, Chris came by nervously to ask about the results. Chris was uneasy, but I think I was more uneasy. In front of an uneasy Chris, Hagana laid out the numbers.
It has gone up to 39,200 mools.
Hagana was stately in her proclamation. She was as stately as she was confident in the outcome. Chris was apparently way smarter than you could ever imagine from how silly she appeared. Therefore, she should have been able to realize that they were still far off from paying off their debts, given that there was only a 30% increase. With those haughty demands I thrust at them, it would have been expected that I would have gotten at least halfway to the final goal. The 30,000 mools was what little Chris's dad could wring out as their last hope. And to take in that money under such haughty demands, but not even making 70% of the goal with something I had confidence in, I felt a bit guilty. And because this was my line of thinking, seeing Chris's surprising reaction may have made me think of something immature. I pondered that not being able to see the picture and calculate gains and losses properly was why the poor would always remain poor. Staying in poverty meant that they didn't have any technical skills and talents. All they could sell was their time. Since all living beings had the same amount of time available to them, their time was cheap. People with technical skills could get more money for their time, and people with innate talents were rarer and thus fetched an even higher price for their time. However, that road topped out with doctors and lawyers. To get over that hump, one would have to have something else do the work. In other words, one would have to become a businessman. However, one didn't have to just get people to work. one could also just get money itself to work. Therefore, paying off just the interest little by little, like Lisa would have normally been a dead end. To break out of poverty meant to take the opposite road. Entrusting the nest egg to us, and then being surprised at just a 30% increase was not the way to go. Those were my thoughts as I stared arrogantly down at Chris. However, Hagana said the following.
It's true. So, you could buy shoes and clothes with the earned money.
My jaw dropped unexpectedly.
And from here on, it's going to go up even more. You could buy shoes, clothes, and bags, and I think there'd still be money left over. This isn't something to cry over. I'm not crying.
And then Chris burst out crying, and Hagana was unusually flustered. However, the person most flustered by this was probably me. Hagana's words pierced deeply into my heart. Aw, is he having a Grinch moment? It's gonna grow 3 sizes today. You can buy clothes and shoes. She didn't say that the money wasn't enough to pay off the debt yet. Rather, she said something more disgustingly practical. Chris's clothing was in various sizes that didn't fit her, and her shoes were hole-filled sneakers that were even worse of a fit. Telling her that it was better to buy something to replace them would have been a ridiculously obvious thing to say. And yet, I didn't realize it until she had said it. It totally didn't enter my mind at all. To Chris and Hagana, money was just that. It was the reverse of when I thrust those bills at Hagana, saying what I said was the truth. Again, I failed to realize what money actually was. I didn't really understand what it meant to make money in order to live. Before I had stumbled into this church, I had certainly used the money I earned to pay for board, but that was simply a matter of saving up money like my family would. You can buy clothing and shoes. That was something dead obvious. For me, that statement only entered my mind when I was considering how I could save money. Ever since I was born, I had never had a situation where I couldn't buy something even if I really wanted it. These were things I took for granted. Hagana and Chris lived in a different world.
Chris!
Hagana called out her name. Hagana's emotionless expression was, in other words, the totally serious expression she'd always wear.
I'll make it grow more.
Rather than just plain crying, Chris was sobbing, staring at Hagana as if she had come across the savior of the world. Hagana nodded slowly, and then, raising one hand, she pointed at me.
Hal is going to make it grow for us.
Wait, what? What? I was flurried at the sudden mention, but Chris looked at me with trusting eyes. She had beautiful blue eyes. Staring into those eyes made me feel dirty about thinking all those bad things about her. I had recoiled, and Chris roughly wiped her face with her sleeves. Although she was sitting on the ground, she straightened herself and looked me straight in the eye.
We place ourselves in your care.
That was her polite statement. This was what we were really doing. Since our performance was enough to make Chris's legs give out, it was no surprise that more and more folks showed up to discuss similar deals. They were acquaintances of Chris and her dad who, not surprisingly, owed Toyama money. Among them were many who Lisa knew, and whose troubles Lisa knew like the back of her hand. These guys had life savings of something like 10,000 mools, or 30,000 mools, although some even had only a few thousand mools of savings. Since they were willing to give me 20% of the profits, and I had to shoulder none of the losses, there was no reason for me to decline the offers. Because fundamentally, investing didn't really change with the amount of money, and the amount of effort required here wouldn't change. Only the amount of profits. Furthermore, the feeling of helping someone out would be stronger as well. A total of 8 people came by to entrust us with their money, and in a short time, our war chest increased to 200,000 mools.
Now we can help lots of people.
Hagana muttered that comment while looking at the register Lisa made of names and how much money was given. Even I, when looking at what a deplorable state Chris was in, felt it wasn't bad to help someone else make money. However, whenever someone came by with some money, a little part of me felt a bit more nervous. It was because larger amounts of money made it harder to perform quick trades. With 70,000 mools, it was possible to dump all of it into a single one of any number of stocks right away. But with 200,000 mools, the options were much more limited. If it weren't a large construction firm, bank, insurance firm, or an infrastructure firm, then just our own trades would move the prices. Therefore, we'd have to break the 200,000 mools into 3 or 4 parts, and invest in many more stocks than we had been doing so before. Theoretically, that would work, but would it really be fine in the end? I was apprehensive, but then again, these were groundless fears. I had perhaps my senses have become numbed. Or perhaps the energy involved in trading had not only tired me out physically, but mentally as well. And we're going to have to not kick things off, we're going to have to stop things here. We'll kick things off next time, because we are out of time. We're going to have to find out how the investment contest wraps up. I'm going to guess we'll get to that next episode, and then see what Barton thinks of our real stock trading. I admit I was not expecting us to start taking on more and more clients that quickly. I'm sincerely hoping that the program keeps going, because this is risky. That's a lot of money to be taken care of for other people all of a sudden, and you don't have liability insurance or anything other than probably just a vocal or verbal contract. It's getting dicey. We're going to have to find out what happens next time. By all means, post in the comments what you think so far. Is he going to pull it off? Is everything going to end happily ever after? Or are things going to get a little complicated? Let's continue the discussion in the comments below. And in the meantime, I will see you all next time. Greetings and salutations, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World End Economica. Now, last time round, we had some interesting developments. We may be going freelance for all we know, considering others want Hal to invest their money and help them out, because moon debt is not a fun time. Then we may have gotten scouted by some 20% of earnings. The traditional cut hedge funds took. They'd gather money from their customers and trade according to the decisions of the fund manager. They would take 20% of the earnings. At my reply, Lisa twisted her lips as if she'd just eaten something bitter.
You're not going to lower that anymore, right?
I'm not doing this to play around. She scattered her strong emotions slowly with a deep breath. Her hair won't plan on working for free. Lisa's expression truly changed. She looked at me with an uneasy expression, holding back a huge amount of feelings, whether it was an urge to cry or an urge to yell angrily.
Compensation.
That's right. I took a risk to experiment with this. It wasn't easy getting such investment technology into my hands. Furthermore, I have an agreement to pay my due share of the usage fee for Hagana's program. I don't care what Chris's family really rich dude named Barton. Not quite sure how that's all gonna go down. So hey, let's go find out.
What?
I had paused for a second, but told myself this was something that had to be said, and proceeded to say it. Compensation. I pronounced that word clearly, without running away. I looked Lisa right in the eye, with all seriousness. There's the issue of compensation. I don't know what the situation is. However, I won't do it without some sort of compensation. I took a deep breath and recalled Barton's dignified demeanor. An investor. It was an extremely theatrical declaration, but I didn't retreat a centimeter from Lisa. I was even prepared to get in an argument and part ways. However, Lisa slowly opened her mouth at the end of the staring contest.
That compensation, how much would it come out to be?